What's up, listeners? How we doing? There's a Kickstarter campaign that we need to talk about. I now own the high score on my Twilight Zone machine. Teresa's out of town in Oklahoma. It's me and the dog and the cat, and we're going to do some coast-to-coast pinball. Thanks for being here. Welcome to episode 5 of Coast2Coast Pinball. It's July 11th, 2013. My name's Nate Shivers. Thank you very much for downloading, streaming, or otherwise listening to Coast2Coast Pinball. I am a man out of quarters. What's going on? So, I am excited. It's a Thursday night. The lovely Teresa's at home in Oklahoma visiting family. Not her home, but her family's home. And I'm hanging out with the animals here in San Diego. Living it up, big bachelor style. I don't know that I'm doing much different without Teresa here, but, it's lonely, maybe? Anyway, so, episode 5, what we're going to go over today, we're going to do some mailbag questions. We are going to do some forum static, which will be the bulk of the show. But I also want to touch on something I was thinking about today. On my drive home from work, and I got off work at a fairly early time. There's a bowling alley in San Diego called the Kearny Mesa Bowl in a area that's not far off the freeway, the highway that I take home from work every day. Probably would take me 5 minutes to get off the highway and go to the bowling alley. And they have some pinball machines, and in particular, they have a Monster Bash, a very nice Monster Bash. In fact, I think it's the nicest Monster Bash I've ever played out in the wild. And when I first discovered it, when I was really getting back into my big pinball phase, I would go there quite often because it was such a great game, and it wasn't a game I'd ever really played before. I'd read about it, heard about it, seen it, and I fell in love. It's really, truly a great game. And then as I got more into the hobby and started collecting, I saw how expensive of a game it was, so I would go back. And since then, I've actually seen Monster Bashes a couple out in the wild in my travels, and I almost don't play them because I always think, oh, I've got one right by my home. I can play it at home. And that's sort of turned into me not even going out of my way to go to that bowling alley. I moved a little farther north now and just trying to beat traffic and get home, and I don't stop and play that nice Monster Bash anymore. But it dawned on me today that game will not be en route and be in that bowling alley forever. It's worth too much money. They're going to take that out of there. In fact, I've sent feelers out to try and buy the thing. No response, of course. So I guess I need to appreciate what I have in my local establishments and go play them. There's a Scared Stiff not far from me either. I need to go play that more. Who knows if I'll ever find one of those that I can buy. Possible. Monster Bash, highly unlikely. So I don't know. If you're out there and you have a couple pinball machines at home, or one or a bunch, 70, but there's a game or two out in the field, go play them. Throw some quarters in. Do it, because you never know when they'll be gone. And one of the interesting things about this hobby right now is that it's heavily reliant on big, expensive equipment that they no longer make. And yes, there's, been no better time like right now for new games since the 90s. I truly believe that. We're living in, I think, a resurgent era, time frame where if you want a new pinball machine, there's some really good stuff happening. Obviously, we talk about that a lot. But it may not always be like that, who knows? So these games from the 80s and 90s, especially, that's what I'm in love with, is the 80s, 90s stuff. Some of it, they're falling apart, they're being gobbled up by collectors, they're being held on to, and you need to go out there and appreciate them and support the local businesses that support pinball by having the games there. Now, obviously, there's a flip side to it that we talked about in last episode about machines in bad shape, but I can say, with certain that the games en route there at the Kearny Mesa Bowl are all in really good shape. I think they've even changed the games up since I was last there. Last time I was there was an AC/DC Premium, the Monster Bash, a Funhouse, and Demolition Man. And I'm pretty sure that AC/DC Premium's gone, and I the Funhouse maybe also. In fact, I think somebody told me that there's a teed off there, which I've never played teed off before, and I'm a big golf fan, so I'm definitely going to do that. That's my goal this weekend. I'm going to spend some time at the Kearney Mesa Bowl. Teresa's out of town. I'm all alone. Go, keep myself company with the unwashed masses at the bowling alley. So I might even find some folks from work that might want to go bowling this weekend. That might be fun. So that's kind of what I was thinking about today. I do want to jump right into forum static.
Forum static.
So I think if you follow pinball even just a little bit in the last week, 10 days, you've probably seen, or at least it's been right in front of you and maybe you didn't see it, there is a big Kickstarter campaign underway for a new project that a couple of guys here in Southern California are trying to put together. And it is called the Museum of Pinball. So we have the Pinball Hall of Fame in Las Vegas. We have the Silver Ball Museum in New Jersey. There's a Pinball Museum or Hall of Fame in Seattle. There's some really great places around the country with lots of games. They are looking to make this project and this establishment that they're trying to get off the ground here in Southern California the largest pinball museum in the world. And there's two guys, a guy named Dave, who seems to be sort of the front man, the barker, the carny, so to speak, for the project, and he's really good in front of a camera and talking about it. I've heard some interviews he's done, and but the main guy, who's the money man and sort of the owner of these, I think they have over 500 pinball machines. In their possession. It's a guy named John Weeks. And John Weeks, if you read a little bit about him in his bio, he's a businessman. He's owned arcades in the past. Sounds like he loved pinball, fell away from it a little bit, and then started gobbling up pinball machines again. And he has a very impressive list of games. He has just about anything you could think of from the 70s, 80s, 90s that's really cool. And then a lot of 60s stuff, and then some real rarities. There's some Cactus Canyon, Big Bang Bar. Really cool game list. And it would be thrilling to get to play all these. So what they've done is they've acquired land and buildings, and this is based in a town called Banning, California, Banning, California, which is, I believe, about 30 minutes west of Palm Springs. So this is sort of in the Inland Empire of Southern California, as we call it. And I used to work a sales territory that covered all of Southern California, and I lived in both Long Beach and Pasadena, and often made the drive out to Palm Springs and out in the Inland Empire, had accounts that I would go see. And so I know where Banning is. Banning's off I-10. There's not much out there. We'll get into that in a little bit. But there is affordable real estate, for sure. This is where, when the housing crisis hit a few years ago, the Inland Empire in Southern California was one of the heaviest hit areas in the country. Houses that had been selling for $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 out in places like Rancho Cucamonga and Corona were all of a sudden, not worth $200,000. You could literally buy, when I first moved to California a few years ago, you could buy a really nice 6, 7, 8-year-old house in the Inland Empire for nothing, for like 150 grand. It was amazing what happened to real estate out there. It was really sad. And I dealt with a lot of businesses out there that felt that effect. So I think there's real estate opportunities, and that's probably what drove these guys out to that area, is they could get this really great, and the building's cool. He's got this giant building. I think there's 40,000 square feet of area in the one building for pinball. So Kickstarter, this is what's sort of bringing this to the forefront right now. Kickstarter is like a crowdsourcing website, which just means that basically a company or an organization is going to put together an idea or a concept for something that they feel that the public would be interested in helping to fund. A little bit by a lot of people. So instead of finding like 2 or 3 backers to put in $100,000, the idea is to find 10,000 backers to put in $50 or something like that, or a combination of backers to put in a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there. And I think that these guys feel what I feel, what's driven me to do this podcast, and what I think a lot of people are starting to chat about. We're sort of in a resurgent area of pinball. So you've got a guy with a huge collection and a passion for pinball, obviously has some money and some business sense. He's got a partner who sort of seems to have the drive of the marketing side of it, and they are coming to us via Kickstarter, us being the pinball public, the pinball fans and the pinhead universe, as we'll say, and they're saying, hey, we want to build this mecca, this this like place, almost like a homecoming of pinball machines, a place where everybody can come and enjoy this historical collection of pinball. We're going to do a not-for-profit business. It's basically just going to keep itself going. We're going to provide an amazing environment. We're going to provide camping environments. They've got other plans for snack bars and VIP rooms. They've got a lot to it, and we want you guys to help us build it, because we got the collection, we got the building, now we need the money to get it up and running. So, you know, I've followed a lot of Kickstarters, and Kickstarters are pretty cool because the idea is not, hey, I want you to pay for my stuff. It's, this is something that I can't really afford to do, that I think a lot of people would really love me to do, and if you'll all pitch in, I'm going to give you some bonus goodies and some VIP exclusive things, or some piece of it in a way, some physical piece of what we're doing for taking part. So there's been some very successful Kickstarter things. I know that Pinball's had a few of them pop up, and some successful, some not. What they're looking to do is raise across, I believe, the 30 days in July, or roughly the 30 days in July. I think it started Monday of this week. They are looking to raise $150,000 as their minimum number to get it off the ground, to open the doors, to have the Museum of Pinball in Banning, California. That $150,000 basically, I think, will just sort of let them do the bare bones build out, get the place painted, get the machines moved in, and start actually having some sort of staff. Because, I mean, can you imagine the service on 500 machines? You're going to have some techs. And you're going to have some techs with, like, vast knowledge of pinball machines, because we're talking old games, old EMs, all the way through a bunch of new Sterns. So they're looking for 150 grand. They are, I believe, 2 or 3 days in now, because they have 27 days to go. And as of me recording this podcast, they had 76 donors who've pledged a total of $13,462. Now, I've watched a lot of Kickstarters before, and that's not bad. That's okay. I think we'll know more after the weekend. I think that, you know, this is kind of a weird week coming off of 4th of July, you know, vacation week for a lot of people. So I'm not super impressed by that start, because you'd hope to see a bunch of big, you know, oftentimes you'll see the big guys come in with a lot of money, and I was hoping to log in 2 days in and see $40,000-$50,000, and so only 13.4 is okay. I think we'll know more after the weekend. You can donate in all sorts of different increments. I think they have 20 or more different backing levels, and they start for as low as $10. I think you can donate just $10, and that'll get your name up on the wall of supporters at the actual Museum of Pinball. And this works its way up, and they have different things like some collectible tokens that are going to be, you know, like limited run tokens for the Museum of Pinball that you can get at a certain level. I think it's $20 or $25 maybe. Gets you 10 of those. There's t-shirts available. I think there's 2 different t-shirts at different, you know, support levels. You can get invites to the opening weekend, which they are projecting to be in January or February of 2014. So we're talking 6 or 7 months from now. That's not that far away. They're having a super grand opening, like Friday night gala event, which you can get into. You can get a whole weekend pass, and then you can go really big. You can get up to, the highest bid level is $10,000, and for $10,000 you get, I think, 10 passes that are good for the entire year. And so I guess you could use that for 10 people for a year, or yourself for 10 years. I think is how I read that. You get banners at the museum. You get your name all over the place. Ads on their newsletter. Basically, you're a big stud, and you get to have a party. You're a big dog. So as of right now, looking at this $13.5 thousand they have donated, there actually is a $10,000 bid in there, because Kickstarter lets you see how many people have bid at each level. And so one person did bid, or, you know, pledge, I'll say, $10,000. So if you pull that pledge out, they've only gotten $3,462 so far, and that has me a little bit worried. I'd like to see that a little higher. But like I said, let's see through the weekend, see how it's going. We'll update this next week in a future episode. I want to talk about... Let's talk about the good side of this, because I think these type of places are amazing, because we're never all going to be able to have all the games we want. I would love to own 50 games and have a big giant warehouse and go play them. I'd still want 51. I think we're all probably in the same boat like that. You'll never get them all. People are trading them. You only have so much room. So for there to be more places in this country that have, you know, dozens and dozens or hundreds of pinball machines, That's awesome. When I first heard about this, I was so excited because this is within 2 hours of San Diego, basically banned in California. So I would go there. It'd be awesome. The Pinball Hall of Fame is a little far in Vegas for me to just up and go. Luckily, I travel a lot to the East Coast, and there's a few places out there with lots of games. But to have one in Southern California, I think that's awesome. Obviously, these two guys, Dave and John, are very passionate about pinball, and anytime you can get guys who not only have the passion but also have the business acumen and the money to jump into our hobby and sort of promote and bring energy to it, that's only a good thing, and that's awesome. So from a top-down, look at this, it's so good. It's like 5-star, gold medal. We love this. Coast to Coast Pinball is so behind this. I will be pledging to this. I just got to decide what level I want to pledge to. What's nice about Kickstarter, let's say I go and pledge $150 and they don't hit their $150,000, they never take my money. The money doesn't go unless the whole thing goes. So that's, you kind of have a safety net. It's not like you're going to pledge money, they don't get it, and then they go, buy a car off your money or something. So I'm definitely behind them on this from a top-down level. I think, it's almost to me like they're like teenagers who say, oh man, if we had $1 million, we could build this awesome giant place and you could sleep over and we'd have a snack bar. It's almost like that sort of thing come true, which is pretty cool if you think about it. I remember being a kid and going, oh, if I had an arcade, I'd have hundreds of games and I'd do this and do that. Well, that's kind of what these guys are doing. I actually, and this is all speculation, and if Dave or John ever hears this and wants to tell me I'm crazy or prove me wrong, that's fine in the future. But I have this feeling if the Kickstarter doesn't go through, these guys may find a way to do this anyway. There just seems like there's an awful lot of energy and want coming out of these guys, and John seems to be pretty savvy that he may be able to find $150,000. So that's another thing I think they got going for them. I do like that they have long-term visions. They mention in their video on the Kickstarter page, they mention a restoration workshop, because obviously that's going to be key in maintaining 500 plus games or getting more games in. They're going to need techs. And they've talked about that. They've been in the Pinside forums answering questions. Dave himself has been in there, like, quickly answering questions that forum members have brought up. Some of them really kind of pointing about the business, say like, hey, so you're not for profit, tell me this. And he's done, I think, a very good job of getting in and providing as much transparency as he can and giving as much detailed info as he can. Obviously they want our money, so it's in his best interest to do that. But I think that's great that he's willing to answer all these questions. I think it sounds like they do understand that this is a giant undertaking on a few different levels. There's not 500 pinball machines anywhere that I know of. Papa doesn't have that. I don't think anybody has 500. I think maybe there's been a show or two that have gotten to 500 games. I don't think so, though. So just things like setup and organization, there's a lot to it, and their website's pretty good. They seem to have a decent plan. From a top-down level, I'm so for this, and I would encourage any of you who, just for the good of the game, even if you're not in Southern California, don't ever planning on coming to Southern California, throw $10 their way. Throw $25 their way. Get the T-shirt. The T-shirt's badass. Put the money in there. Get the T-shirt. I think it's cool. I think it's a nice thing. So support it. I just want to, on record, Coast to Coast Pinball, Nate Shivers, supports this. Let me talk about the other side of it, because I'm a realist at heart. I'm the guy who loves to look at something from multiple angles. I like to play devil's advocate. I'm an optimist, but I'm definitely a realist too on a lot of levels. And this came up, and what I did first is I watched the video, I read their whole webpage, I read all the support levels, and kind of started thinking about what I thought of it before I read the Pinside forum post. There's like 100 reply posts going on Pinside right now. I read that, and it was funny because all the little devils on my shoulders that were kind of pointing out, well, what about this? What about this? Most of that stuff came up in the thread. some of the people who brought up the fears they had, I think, or just the downside to some of these things, were quickly regarded as trolls, partly because some of them didn't come across very well with their writing. And then I think there's also, we're excited about pinball, so anytime somebody sort of throws a wet blanket on anything, it's easy to say, oh, he's just negative, forget him. But I think there's some real glaring issues with the plan here. And I can't help but, my father owned businesses when I was growing up. I work in an industry where I deal with, 50 or more independent businesses who really rely on the public supporting their business. And I cannot help but just have three words screaming in my head as I read this whole thing and watched the Kickstarter thing. Location, location, location. It's Banning, California, and they're very quick to point out the positives of this location. Easy access from the freeway. It's not far from a pretty large casino out there. I believe it's an Indian tribe casino, the Morongo Casino. It's not far from a giant outlet mall center, which I've stopped at before. When I was working out there, I'd pulled into this outlet mall and went shopping. And it's not far from Palm Springs, which is, kind of a big vacation area. So they're very quick to point out the good things. Let me tell you about the bad things. It's over an hour from Los Angeles to get out there. Yes, the Inland Empire does have a large population. I think pinball is actually pretty popular out there just because I'm constantly looking for pinball machines, and there's a lot of games in the Riverside, Corona, Temecula, the Inland Empire, up in that area. There are a lot of games out there, so I think pinball is popular there. So I think there will be, some customers and some attendees just built into that area. It's not like they're trying to build this in North Dakota. No, it's still Southern California. There's a lot of people out there. But to try and say that you're really LA or San Diego local, I guess you are for the casual visit. Like, I'm San Diego. I'm about 2 hours from this place. Realistically, traffic could make it 3 hours in a hurry. That is not that easy to get to. That is not something I'm going to do ultra often. And I don't know that there's enough people who are going to mix the casino and the outlet malls and a pinball museum in the same trip. I think that's wishful thinking on some level. I'm worried about the location. I know that the building was probably affordable. You can spin this very, very positively. I've actually dealt with, I work in the musical instrument industry, and I dealt with an account not far from Banning, about 20 minutes from Banning, that's tried to become a very big business in the vintage and high-end guitar world out there, and they're actually in Riverside, if I remember correctly. And when I went to see them, I envisioned one thing and saw something completely different. I envisioned this, giant, because it was pitched to me as, well, it's not really a store, it's sort of in like an industrial park, but it's really nice. So multiple people had told me that about this business that I'm talking about called Wild West Guitars. So I went out there, and I probably was there on my first business trying to sell them something for maybe 3 hours. I saw one customer in 3 hours at a location that had one of the finest selections of electric guitars and electric amplifiers in the western side of this country. 3 customers. They're mail order. They're a mail order house. They're a website and mail order, because you don't get the traffic like that out there. There's not a lot of money out in the Inland Empire as like there would be in Orange County or even San Diego or the west side of Los Angeles. It's a less affluent area. So I don't know how that plays into this, because we're talking about 500 machines, a big building with a monthly payment, techs. It's not going to be cheap to run this. So they go out of their way to say they want to run this museum like a business to make it successful. Rule number 1 of business is location. You've got to be in the right spot. I would be infinitely more excited about this if this was based in Orange County, within 20 minutes of Disneyland or Knott's Berry Farm, or in like Hollywood, or up even in like Thousand Oaks area where there's a lot of people and a lot of money, and closer to more tourist attractions, because Palm Springs is golf and retirement and spas, and I don't know. I'm not feeling the location at all. If I were to give the top-down business idea, it pulls my heartstrings. I give it a 10 out of 10. I love it. I give the location like a 3 or 4. At least it's in Southern California, which is good. But man, that location could be a killer. It really could. I worry about that. That worries me. I wish that they had gone closer to the coast, or just the population base, or I don't know. I fear that. So that's that is what it is. I'm also worried about the hours that they're talking about. So what I think they're trying to do is go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the thing's open, like a day, all day type of thing. I'm guessing it's probably going to be like a noon to 9 or a noon to 10 o'clock at night type hours, maybe a little earlier. And that's cool. But Monday through Thursday, it looks like they're going to be closed with the option of renting it out to private parties and corporations. Now that to me presents a really cool angle, because if you have this place that's this destination of imagine 500 pinball machines. You've never seen that many pinball machines, but if you could, it's like Disneyland. It's huge. It's Disneyland for pinball machines. So what I'm thinking is, these guys seem to be sort of businessmen. They're probably going to pitch this as a place for corporations and businesses to have outings and events, where you take like your whole staff of your company for like, hey, we're doing a day at the pinball place, or we're doing an evening at the Museum of Pinball in Banning. So there's tons of businesses in the Inland Empire, and if they could get 60, 70 of those a year, and maybe the company's paying $5,000 to rent the place out and have it for their 100 employees, or maybe they're paying more than that for a bigger group, that could be a big profit center. I mean, if you do the math on that, that could be a lot of money coming in. Not enough probably to cover their expenses, but it could offset a lot of what I perceive to be first-year loss of, it's going to cost them a lot of money to have this thing open. And I don't know how much money they're going to take in. Sounds like they're going to have a daily use fee, so you're going to pay an entry fee to come into the Museum of Pinball. And then what they said in a forum post, Dave answered a question about this, as he said a large number of machines will be on free play. Some will require extra credit. So I think we all probably are imagining the older games all free play, and then anything new Stern-wise, probably you'll have to do extra credit. Probably A-list games extra credit or something to that effect. That's fine. I understand that. They also mentioned they're going to use a card swipe system on all the games. That's a lot of money right there to buy card swipe systems for all of those games. So that's a huge expense. I don't even know how you do that on some of the older games. I guess you can do that on the EMs. I've never seen it done. Maybe. I've always seen EMs either set on free play or just using quarters or tokens. So that's an interesting thought too. You kind of would hope that a place like this would just do the flat rate thing, I guess. There's examples out there where, like the Pinball Hall of Fame in Vegas, you're just using quarters. I don't believe it's tokens. I believe it's quarters. But then the Silver Ball Museum in Asbury Park, New Jersey, you pay by the time you're going to be in there. And I love getting there at 5 o'clock on like a weeknight, because they have, I think it's $15 from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock, unlimited play. I love unlimited play in a place like this, where you can actually spend some time draining balls and being terrible on a game and really get to know the game. But that's me personally. I love that. The Pinball Wizard Arcade in New Hampshire is on quarters, and I was bummed when I first saw that the first time I went there. But I quickly realized how far $20 goes in that place, so that's fine too. I was kind of hoping that this would be all free play, but a majority of it on free play is still really awesome. 500 machines, there's bound to be a lot there to keep you busy. They do get into some of the other, the ideas that they're going to have this. They have this like park type area where they're going to be having like vintage RV trailers for like camping, and like you can rent the RV trailers out for the night or the weekend, and that's cool. But I'm not sure if a lot of guys are going to be able to pitch to their wives or girlfriends or families, hey, we're going to rent a vintage Airstream trailer in the desert in California, because let's be real, it's hot out there. This is not LA, San Diego weather and Banning. This is in the 90s every day from May through October, pretty much. Maybe that's stretching a little bit, but it's hot out there a lot of the year. So I don't know, if I said to even Teresa, who really likes pinball, hey, we're going to stay in a trailer a night in a little camp area right next to the Museum of Pinball, I don't know that she'd go for that. So I think that's a great idea, and that's pulling on the heartstrings of like wanting back to those days of the vintageness and kind of off the, the retro cool chic thing. Might be cool. But what really scared me is when I saw the pictures of this parking lot at this building, this giant open parking lot, and in my head I was trying to picture how many cars are going to pull into the parking lot for pinball every day. Let's be honest with ourselves. We love pinball. How big is our community? How big of a draw are we? Because I've pulled up to the Pinball Hall of Fame in Las Vegas and been in there for a long time and been one of only maybe 2 or 3 people playing games. And that's in Vegas, a huge tourist destination. I was in the Silver Ball Museum in Asbury Park, which is such a fantastic place, a month ago, and from 8:30 to 9 o'clock, I was the only person playing pinball in there. Me and 120 games or whatever it was. I've been in the Pinball Wizard Arcade in New Hampshire on a late afternoon, maybe 5 o'clock, and been the only person playing pinball in there. I just hope that it's not a cold, hard splash of water in the face to throw this thing open, have this big, exciting opening weekend, and then 6-7 weeks out, it dies off and there's nobody coming through the doors. That would really bum me out, and I think it'd be depressing. My gut is that this is a fantastic idea coming from a fantastic place, but I think they're overshooting. I think they're thinking a little too big, too fast, in a bad location. I'm worried. I don't know. I'd love to hear what you guys all think. Don't cast me as a hater. I'm sending them my money. They can have my money. Even with that, I'm sending my money. I'm all for this. I will support this venture as much as I possibly can. But I'm worried. I gotta say, I'm a little bit worried. So those are some of my thoughts on the Pinball Museum, or the Museum of Pinball in Banning, California, that is currently on Kickstarter. So please go check it out. So you heard me mention in the intro to this episode that I now hold the high score on my Twilight Zone game. That excites me more than you know. I came home from work on, was it Monday? I think it was Monday. And I started playing, and I was just draining, terrible. I wasn't concentrating. And Teresa walked in and started talking to me, and I started another game. And I think my first ball ended pretty modestly, like, 50 million or something like that. But in the middle of my second ball, I had 2 free balls locked in, and I ended my second ball at like 260 million with 2 free balls banked. So I really had 3 balls left. And in my head, I'm like, wow, I'm starting at 260 with 3 balls. This is awesome. Also on this game, I had a ton of door panels lit. And so I ended up getting Lost in the Zone. It was awesome. I had never seen Lost in the Zone actually happen. I didn't ever look at a YouTube video, and no one had done it while I was watching them play. So I got Lost in the Zone. The whole darn machine lights up. All 6 balls come out. You're just going like crazy. It's timed, and you're just hitting as much as you can. And when it was all said and done, and I drained all my balls, and it was all over, I was at 782 million. So I now sit atop where I should, and that's awesome. And yeah. Speaking of my Twilight Zone game, I am actually sending a Pinside forum member $85 for my first purchased mod for my Twilight Zone game. A guy named Pinball Smith on the forums has a Twilight Zone piano mod that he has dreamt up and designed, and it's really cool. It looks like he worked it out in a CAD program where he designed like a player piano, that's printed on the Twilight Zone game by the Piano Target, and then he had it printed out with a 3D printer, which these 3D printers are going to just take over the world in the short future. And then he's had it molded, and he has lights that go in the keyboard part of the piano, in the keys that light up, and then the actual target lights that tell you the piano shot's lit, or that the jackpot's on, slip into the piano when you insert the piano onto the spot, and those light up in the reel, like the music reels, because it's a player piano. And it's really cool. he's got pictures of it up there on Pinza. If you just Google Twilight Zone piano, you'll find it. Well, not Google it, but search it on the Pinside forums. You'll find it. It's just so awesome. And I emailed him and told him how cool I thought it was, and that I'd drop him a little note here on the podcast. And he says he's working on a bracket for it and everything. So I'm pretty excited, because that's the one shot in the game when I've had friends over where I'm like, hit the piano shot. They don't have any idea what I'm talking about. They don't know there's a piano there printed. It's some very small artwork on the playfield. Now it's going to be a big, nice piano that I think fits just perfectly into the game. So I don't want to get gaudy with my Twilight Zone, but I do think this will be a really nice addition. So pretty excited about that piano mod. Very cool. I have emails left over, and I'm going to skip some of my older emails because the questions weren't all that important. I did get 2 new emails sent to me since the last episode, so we're gonna jump in and get those answered.
Check the email.
All right, so first email is from a guy named Tim in Downers Grove, Illinois, and he writes to me and just says, "What is your favorite podcast?" Now, I'm assuming he means a pinball-based podcast, but I will say I listen to a lot of podcasts. I think I have 14 podcasts that update on my iPhone. And I listen to all sorts of things from CNET's 404 podcast to the Wrestling Observer podcast, because I'm a big geek, and then a bunch of pinball podcasts. But I think he's actually asking me about the pinball podcast, and I don't want to start like a, who I like, who I don't like type of thing. But I will say that the last couple Spooky Pinball podcasts I really look forward to hearing. That's one of my favorites. I love listening to that. And honestly, I look forward to the most, though, every month, the Pinball Podcast, the one that's actually just called the Pinball Podcast with Don and Jeff, because I just like their sort of their conversational, manner, and I like how deep they go in stuff about games. I like their top 5 lists. It's sort of right up my alley. So that's probably the one I wait for every month, but I do like all of them. I listen to just about everything. So that's kind of a cool question. Appreciate it. And then let's see, Donald in Albany wrote to me, and he actually had a buying question, which I thought was kind of, I don't know why he's asking me, but his call, but I'll throw it out here. It's interesting conversation, if nothing else. He said, would you rather own a new in-box Metallica Premium, yes, or a nice example of an Attack from Mars? And actually I would say it all depends on what you're paying for the Attack from Mars. If we're talking about the same price, which I doubt you can get a nice Attack from Mars for the same price as you could get a new in-box Premium Metallica, maybe within $1,000. But if money's no option, it's just which one. At this point, I have to say, if you like Attack from Mars, you get Attack from Mars. There's only so many of those left. There's only so many really good ones left. They're expensive. They may go up. And there's lots of Metallicas out there. They're building Metallicas right now. There's a lot of people who have just bought Metallicas who are not going to keep their Metallicas. So there will be deals in the future. Buy the Attack from Mars. I actually saw somebody comparing the 2 games, so I think it's probably interesting. And maybe he read the same thread as I did about how they their shots line up sort of similar. I guess, the saucer shot in Attack from Mars, or Mars Attacks, as Teresa might say, is similar to the electric chair shot in Metallica, maybe. So I could see some similarities there, for sure. But yeah, I think when I'm looking at a newer Stern versus an older Bally Williams, if I can get the older Bally Williams at a price that's decent, and you're not just overpaying, you go get that one right now, because we're sort of in this era where people are gobbling up machines. So yeah, I mean, if you buy the Metallica Premium and the Attack from Mars is a good deal, like, email me back and let me know. Maybe I need to try and make Teresa happy and get Attack from Mars. So that was pretty cool. Appreciate that. Well, I think that's going to do it for episode 5. I'm really excited. I can see the download and listening numbers to all the podcasts as we go, and I'm humbled. Episode 1 is nearing 400 downloads and listens, which just kind of blows my mind. So I really appreciate that. I don't know. Find me on Twitter. Please follow me on Twitter. It's at C2C Pinball. And you can also find my Facebook page, which is Coast2Coast Pinball. Find me on Facebook, like my page on Facebook. I'd appreciate it. I haven't been updating Facebook quite as much. I'll get on that. Mostly just show postings, but Twitter, here and there. I have a trip next week out to the East Coast, so I'm probably going to be hitting up Pinball Wizard and some other Boston area pinball locations, so we'll be doing some cool trip reports while we're out there, focusing on some machines that maybe I haven't given a lot of love to in the past in my playing time. So yeah, and if you have any machines or any place that you'd be interested in me talking about, throw me an email, shoot me on Twitter. I had some guys in St. Louis offer to host me and come out and see a place with some games. I don't get to St. Louis very often, but if I do, I'm gonna take them up on that. So definitely trying to get around as much as I can. I really appreciate you listening, and we'll see you on episode 6, which should hit sometime next week. Take care.